This is, once again, the Monday press conference for the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, in which we ordinarily cover two topics, the first being gun violence during the week, and the second being a specific case or a specific unit within the office that is doing important work. Because we are in an election season, I am happy to announce that we have Commissioner Omar Sabir with us today, and he wanted me to give a few reminders to voters or potential voters. First of all, today is the last day to register. Register for your party, register for your conscience. We need you to vote. And that vote, of course, will be protected. The way to do that is to go to votespa.com. That's VOTESPA.com, where you can either register or you can change. In terms of the ability to vote early this year, I'm going to ask Mr. Sabir, or Commissioner Sabir, excuse me, to come forward and tell you about that. But it is possible to vote in person at City Hall from now through the election with certain details. And there are also drop boxes. Commissioner, would you come forward for a moment?
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Again, the more we vote, the more we get. And yes, you can vote in person right now. You can go to City Hall from 9 to 5, and you can cast your ballot early. You can make a request ballot, and you can get all the information that you need. We're here for you. And more details is at philadelphiavotes.com, and there's more information that's going to be coming up soon about our election. Again, you can vote on or before May the 18th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that, Commissioner. All right, first of all, we're going to move briefly to the report on gun violence over the last week. This is a summary of April the 25th to May the 1st of 2021. During that 7-day period, there were 7 homicides. There were 26 non-fatal shootings. 80 new cases were opened involving guns or gun violence. 80 were opened after 83 arrests. But there were also 175 total incidents reported, leading to the 83 arrests and the 80 cases that were opened. Cash bail has failed us once again. The median bail for both violent offenses committed with guns and for possession of guns was extremely low, much, much less than the DA's office is requesting. And without going through what we've said before, that just has to change. We need legislation in the state that will eliminate the use of money in relation to whether people should be detained or not. And if we do that, we're all going to be in a much better position. So the topic we would like to talk about today is a deed fraud investigation involving over a dozen homes. We are announcing multiple charges against an individual for his role in the illegal deed transfer of 14 residential properties. The arrest and charges are following an extensive joint investigation by the Philadelphia DA's office, the Economic Crimes Unit specifically, and the Philadelphia Police Department's Major Crimes Unit, with invaluable assistance coming from the Philadelphia Department of Records, and thank you for that, and also the Pennsylvania Treasury Department. I will have certain people who are here speak to that shortly, but let me first acknowledge them. We have with us today Assistant DA Chesley Lightsey, who's the chief of our homicide and non-fatal shooting unit. ADA Dawn Holtz is here, who is the chief of our DA's office economic crimes unit. ADA Kim Essick is the assistant chief in the DAO's economic crimes unit, and she does a lot of the work around deed theft and house theft. We are honored to have Majority Leader Sherelle Parker, council member in the 9th District, with us today. She's having a seat at this time. State Senator Art Haywood of the 4th Senate District is here. Commissioner James Leonard, or, well, as we call him, Jim, who's the Commissioner of Records and has done so much to work with us in order to wipe out what has, frankly, been a mini epidemic for quite some time of stolen houses in this city. And we're glad to see measures are being taken in multiple units of the government to get it under control. And I also want to give my sincere thanks to Imam Idris Abdul Zahir for allowing us access to this Masjidullah. So, you know, there have been some terrible shootings in this area, and ordinarily I would go through all of them. It is heartbreaking. It is always heartbreaking. But I'm just going to mention one of the ones that has occurred around here simply because it is indicative of what we're up against. On Sunday, not far from where we stand at 4:23 p.m., 2 young black teenagers ages 17 and 18 were shot in a double shooting incident on 300 East Albana Street in the 35 Police District in broad daylight. Shooters, you need to understand that the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office has nearly an 85% rate of convicting those of you who are caught, and we are doing better than ever now. Our rate of having gun-related cases held over for trial now exceeds 92%. For those of you who are caught, there will be appropriate and serious consequences. We believe in reform, and we believe in reform because it allows us to focus on the most serious crimes. There is no more serious crime than killing another human being with a gun or shooting another human being with a gun. Now I'd like to turn to the issue of the day. I'm going to ask ADA Dawn Holtz to provide an overview of the work of economic crimes and also to discuss some adjustments made by the unit to serve and support victims during the pandemic. And then, without my coming up here again, ADA Essick will announce charges and details against Tyree Bruno, the defendant now charged with the theft of multiple properties. She will provide some details regarding the case, investigations, and our partnerships. For anyone who has had some sort of involvement as a victim, a co-victim, or survivor in relation to gun crimes, please understand we are here, and we are here to support you. Do not hesitate to reach out to the DA's Office Victim Witness Services Unit and our CARES team, which provides services specifically for families of homicide victims and others, at 215-686-8019. And now ADA's Holtz and Essick come forward one at a time, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dawn Holtz. I'm the supervisor of the Economic Crimes Unit in the District Attorney's Office. Just want to give you a little overview of our unit and some of the services that we provide and some of the kind of cases that we handle. We do a variety of things, everything from unemployment compensation fraud, in which a business may not carry unemployment comp insurance, and if you're working for such a person and you become injured or you lose your job, you're not covered. So we do go after those businesses who fail to maintain that situation. We also do welfare fraud, we do insurance fraud, we do embezzlement cases. Those cases may be someone who works for a business, the bookkeeper who steals from the business, someone who's running a youth league or a neighborhood civic association that takes the dues and takes off with the money. Public adjusters is another large one that we've been handling a lot of cases lately, in which there's a fire in your home or next door to your home. That's just an example. And you hire a public adjuster to get you a better payout from the insurance company. And what they do is they do their job, they get the money, but they don't give it to them. They don't give it to you as the consumer. They take the check and they take off. And now you're stuck with a house that needs to be repaired and you don't have the money to do it. We also do some contractor fraud in cases in which you hire someone to do some work in your house and you give them a down payment or you pay them in full and they never come back. Or they may do a very limited amount of work and take off. And then the main, not the main, but one of the biggest things right now is deed theft. I mean, deed theft is huge across our city. And Kim will be speaking more directly on that. But people file fake deeds. They take a property, then they flip it and sell it to either an unsuspecting buyer and make the money, or sell it to someone who's in on it, and they claim that they're unsuspecting. But it takes away the generational wealth of our citizens. And a lot of times these properties where the person that owned it dies and there may be back taxes and the family can't afford to come up with the back taxes, so property sits for a while and people see that there's no activity in a home, and it's not hard to do. We're making a lot of strides to fix and make it harder to do this, but it's very easy for some people. They check out the neighborhood, they talk to neighbors where there's a property where no one's living there, and they begin those proceedings. But basically, I just wanted to say that we're here to help. We've been collaborating with the Recorder of Deeds, with City Hall, the Attorney General's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, City Council, and state reps, and everywhere we can do. We try to help out. They call us, and we try to work on their constituents' problems. We're a member of many task forces now in the city to try to help make things better for everyone, and also try to warn citizens of what to look out for, and also, if you already become a victim, what to do. And lastly, I'd like just to tell everyone out there that if they want to reach our complaint line, it's at 215-686-9902, or you can email us at fraudcomplaint@phila.gov. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Essick. I'm the Assistant Supervisor of the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office Economic and Cybercrime Unit. I've been a prosecutor overall for 20 years. Specifically, I've worked in economic crimes for about 10 years. As you heard from Chief Holtz, the Economic Crimes Unit handles a variety of cases, but one in particular that we're focused on today is deed theft or deed fraud. The citizens of Philadelphia deal with this crime regularly and often right under their noses, where a perpetrator, quite literally, steals a house out from under a property owner. But the victimization does not stop there, because not only does the victim and their loved ones lose the property, but then they must also suffer through the financial and legal burden necessary to get that property back, regardless of whether or not someone has been arrested for the crime. The district attorney made a promise to fight this growing trend of property theft in Philadelphia, and today we are here to report on the results of a multi-source collaborative investigation between the district attorney's office, the Philadelphia Police Department's Major Crimes Unit, the Philadelphia Recorder of Deeds, and the Pennsylvania Department of Treasury. In March of 2019, our office received a complaint from a 71-year-old woman whose property had been illegally transferred without her permission. A review of this transfer by investigators from the District Attorney's Office Economic Crimes Unit revealed that the property had been illegally transferred into the name of Tyree Burno. The signature of the victim, her deceased husband, and the notary on the deed were all said to be forged. At that point, an investigation was opened by Police Officer Matthew Rowdenbush in an attempt to identify the perpetrator. Shortly thereafter, we were contacted by Detective Thomas Robinson of the Major Crimes Division of the Philadelphia Police Department, advising us that he was also investigating the fraudulent leasing of 2 Philadelphia properties, one of which was currently being investigated by our office for deed theft. During the same period, we were notified by the Commissioner of Records, Jim Leonard, who is here as well, about the fraudulent e-recording of even more properties located in Philadelphia, and Detective Phil Greenwell from our office opened an investigation in order to try to identify the perpetrator there. We received information from Detective Terry Brown of the Philadelphia Police Department regarding the possible attempted transfer of yet another property in Philadelphia. And finally, Special Investigator Christine Lucas from the Pennsylvania Department of Treasury reached out to us about possible bad checks that were being written on the Treasury bank account. By working together with the Philadelphia Police Department, the Recorder of Deeds, our own investigators, we uncovered a total of 14 properties and 2 lots that are alleged to have been stolen by Tyree Burno using his own name, aliases, stolen identities, as well as LLCs. 2 properties are also alleged to have been leased fraudulently by him, and 4 fraudulent checks were allegedly written by him on the account of the Pennsylvania Treasury Department. Tyree Burno has been arrested and is currently awaiting preliminary hearing on multiple counts of theft, forgery, identity theft, and related charges. In this case, properties were stolen from the deceased as well as living property owners, both young and old, standard property owners as those who, and also those who own for investment purposes. Historically, one of the biggest hurdles our office has faced in investigating forged deed cases is a lack of access to information, as well as the ability to find witnesses to the crime, where often the victims have no idea that anyone has taken over their property until it is too late to stop it. Throw in some fake and stolen identities, as well as LLCs to cover a thief's tracks, and you have packed on even more to what would be an almost insurmountable hill to overcome in order to identify the person involved in the theft. But those challenges were faced head-on through collaboration and information sharing among both city and state agencies. And this collaboration was absolutely critical in identifying the alleged perpetrator of these crimes. The investigation, as outlined in the arrest warrants, show just how important it is for city agencies to share resources. In the past, it is a lack of communication among organizations, as well as from the members of community dealing with these crimes, that could stall an investigation in its tracks. That was the complete opposite here. This case exemplifies how we have all welcomed a more collaborative approach to tackling deed theft. I've said in the past, and it bears repeating here, that knowledge is power, and the more we talk to one another and learn from one another, the faster we can work to solve these cases by connecting the dots that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. We also better serve the community by helping them learn how to protect themselves from fraud before it even happens. Commissioner Jim Leonard's office has been at the forefront of that movement, getting the word out to property owners that proactivity is actually the best defense. Working with Commissioner Leonard has been invaluable in helping to identify cracks in the system, as well as formulating new ways to stop deed theft in its tracks before a deed ever gets filed. But there is still much work to be done, and further discussions are needed to effectuate change. Property ownership is one of the greatest compliments a person can strive for, and also a significant component of generational wealth. But when the ability to pass on a property to a family is taken away, it can have a devastating effect not only on the person who loses the property, but also on the generations to come who will no longer have the security inheriting property can bring to their lives. Oftentimes, the neighborhoods targeted are ones seen as up and coming where gentrification is prevalent. But sadly, they are also areas where those who should have a right to the property and its benefits don't have the resources to fight for what should be theirs. Thieves run away with the money, leaving property owners or their families unable to pay the legal fees necessary to make things right, which results in people being pushed out of the area, ultimately tearing at the fabric of the family unit as well as the community. Thankfully, various stakeholders here in Philadelphia have recognized this problem and worked to bring us all to the table to shine a light on the issue of deed fraud, opening the lines of communication and resulting in a collaborative effort such as we see here today. We look forward to continuing the discussion with city representatives such as Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, who is also here, who thankfully has been at the forefront of the movement to make change by establishing deed fraud task forces, where we were all invited to come and speak and share ideas on how to make things better for the citizens of Philadelphia when it comes to deed fraud and stolen homes. We encouraged a collaborative effort with all of our counterparts to better educate the community about ways to protect themselves, while also encouraging them to reach out to law enforcement when they believe a crime is occurring. We cannot do this alone, and the evidence in this case in particular will show how much more we can accomplish when we continue to work together. The citizens of Philadelphia are our priority, and we encourage them to reach out, to call the police and make a report, to call the district attorney's office and tell us what is happening in your neighborhood. By coming together today, we have all shown that we are here to help and will continue to work together with you and in your community. We see you, we hear you, and we are listening. Thank you.
Can I have one of those, please? I'm feeling Jeremy, and I'm not gonna have the district attorney coming after me talking about I did something to spread some Jeremy here today. With that being said, let me start by just noting for the record that a 2019 report data released from Pew. It was included in Pew's 2021 State of the City report. It noted that the city of Philadelphia had a 52% rate of home ownership. That was 2019 data from Pew. 52% home ownership rate in the city of Philadelphia. Now, we're anxiously awaiting the new data that will come from the census. However, we expect now that the rate of home ownership in the city of Philadelphia is now 50-50, homeowners and renters. Sherelle, why is this important? This neighborhood that you are standing in right now, that I grew up 3 minutes from here, that I still live 3 minutes from here, this neighborhood boasts a home ownership rate between 75 and 80%. It's a predominantly African American community. When my grandparents moved from the Jim Crow South and met and married in Northwest Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, everyone said, Sherelle, they moved on up like the Jeffersons uptown to Northwest Philadelphia. That was the running joke in my family. Sherelle, why do you bring up this very important, crucial information today? You've heard me say over and over that by far, gun violence is truly Philadelphia's public enemy number one, but the root cause of it, lack of equity, lack of access to opportunity, lack of the opportunity to build wealth. It stems from the unscrupulous practices that we are here to report on today. I want to say to you, District Attorney Krasner, thank you for not letting our cries fall on silent ears. I don't want you to think that when you're talking about redlining, gentrifying communities, reverse mortgages, deed theft, predatory lending, payday lending, folks are intentional about targeting black and brown communities, particularly with the most vulnerable constituency, because who is that? Our seniors. If you know the neighborhood that you're standing up in right now, it suffered from white flight in the late 50s and the 1960s. In the 60s and 70s, it changed. It's a predominantly African-American community. They're doing their best to hold on to what little they have to build generational wealth for their families. D.A. Krasner, all members of the team, I don't want to chop anybody's name up here today. On the legislative front, I want to say that my colleague, State Senator Art Hayward, and I, along with the elected partners who represent this area, will do everything we can to make sure that every resource possible is invested into this community to promote home ownership. Got to give a shout out to you, Records Commissioner, and our Recorder of Deeds, Tracy Gordon, for the tangled title work that you are all doing. And thank you to my colleagues, Council President Darrell Clark, and all members of City Council for making an investment in this issue. Imam Idris Abdul Zahir, people are saying this is a Muslim home, spiritual home here. Thank you for opening up this Masjidullah so that we can become educated on issues like the importance of home preservation. District Attorney Krasner, not everybody has always thought that economic crimes was important. Some people said economic crimes wasn't a sexy issue because it didn't get you the headlines in the newspaper. But we know what sustained this community. We know why it's one of the highest voting regions in the city of Philadelphia. It's because we own. And we won't be satisfied until those home ownership numbers go back up, because renting just isn't enough. Thank you.
Councilmember, thank you so much for your comments and for your leadership on this issue. And speaking of which, we have two more speakers today before the Imam is going to finish off this conference. We have Senator Art Haywood, who has been a tremendous leader at the state level in terms of legislative and other efforts, having experienced this kind of theft in his representation of individuals as an attorney in the past. And also to Jim Leonard, who was right there with us when Councilmember Parker was leading a giant roundtable to talk about possible solutions, and has worked with us from day one to do that, and in fact played a role in this very case in terms of helping us advance. You know, it really is the case that in criminal justice there are histories of success over certain kinds of crime. When I started out as a lawyer, there were a ton of car thefts. Not so many anymore. And the answer there was mostly technology. When I was a kid, there were a whole lot of people being arrested for serial killing. And the answer there turned out to be information sharing between law enforcement agencies, forensics not previously available, and we've seen much less of that. Well, the same is true here. This is a type of crime that exists in a vacuum of information, a vacuum of safeguards. This is the type of crime that we ought to be able to shut down in Philadelphia, and I'm very grateful for the wonderful assistance of legislators and folks in the city like the two you're about to hear from next. I will not get up in between Senator Haywood, Mr. Leonard.
First, thanks to Masjidullah. Thank you so much. I want to thank Councilmember Parker, who really hit the nail on the head in the midst of some severe allergies. And of course, many of us would like to do as good as she did on a regular day. Certainly would like to thank D.A. Krasner for his leadership in this area. And I want to share a few reasons why. As D.A. Krasner mentioned, many years ago I was in private practice as an attorney. And at that time I represented an individual whose family sought to sell a property, and at the time of sale I learned that they didn't own it. Of course, that is a shock. And after some effort of research, we did contact the district attorney at that time, who was non-responsive at that time. We were able to get significant investigation, and eventually the individual came forward after a lot of research, and after some litigation, did turn the property back over to the rightful owner. But as I mentioned, that was without the assistance of the district attorney. As Councilwoman Parker mentioned, the house is the most valuable asset that most people can obtain. And in my particular instance, it was an elderly individual who lost their home. And that is most often the case now. And these are victims who, without intervention, pass away, and comes up to, and the heir has to try to resolve who's the owner. 10 years from the incident, 5 years from the incident. That's why, again, I want to thank District Attorney Krasner, because this is a large number of cases, 14. And the message today is a powerful message that the district attorney can find you. The district attorney can prosecute you. This is the message today. There's one more message I'd like to thank the district attorney for, and that is with respect to cash bail. I'm full support of ending that. But a broader message that he has shared throughout his journey in the district attorney's office. And it's one that Councilmember Parker and I have had a number of conversations about, particularly this year, coming out of the pandemic. And that is, there's been a lot of talk about the pipeline to prison. Lamar, we all knows what that pipeline is and what it's about. What we often don't have a full conversation on, Reverend Holston, is the pipeline to opportunity. It's the pipeline to opportunity that's got cracks in it at pre-K, cracks in it going to 9th grade, cracks in it, opportunity to higher education, cracks in it, $7.25 an hour, a minimum wage, cracks in it, no access to mental health, cracks in it, lack of recreation. We're all familiar with the cracks in the opportunity pipeline, but these are the cracks, Mike Lee, that we can fill. And I cannot thank enough for District Attorney Krasner recognizing that there is an opportunity pipeline that creates law-abiding citizens. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, D.A. Krasner, for having me today. Thank you to Councilmember Parker, Senator Haywood, Kim, Dawn, and all your teams for getting us here today. You know, it's so heartening to think that a case we referred from our office, you know, pre-COVID at this point, has resulted in us standing here today announcing a conviction. And I'm only learning today just how complex it actually was. And that's really the story about these types of cases. They're incredibly complicated. And again, just thank you to everyone for all the hard work. And I'm looking forward to continuing. Just a few notes for the public and how to prevent deed fraud. We have a tool in our office called Fraud Guard, which any member of the public can register for to receive free email notifications when a document is recorded in our office with their name as a party. And that's deed, mortgage, or what have you. And that can be found at our website, which is a dedicated website for deed fraud resources at phila.gov/deed-fraud. We encourage anyone who believes they're a victim of deed fraud to contact our office and file a deed fraud report. We regularly share those with D.A. Krasner's office and the police department, and you can reach us at 215-686-2262. Thank you.
And now it's my honor to call forward Imam Idris Abdul Zahir.
Thank you, D.A. Krasner. And thank you for the cooperation between the DA's office. We have the Commissioner of Records here. We have our Councilwoman Parker here, State Senator Art Haywood, our Commissioner our City Commissioner Omar Sabir is here as well. But this today is a demonstration of how community can work together to protect the most vulnerable amongst us. Because these criminals, they target the most vulnerable amongst us. The folks that, you know, that are elderly, are sick, are uneducated, are poor, and take from them one of the most valuable things that a human being can acquire, which is their home. So we're so thankful that we have responsive government, responsive leaders in these different areas that are working together to serve the community. And we can't be happier with the result. Hopefully we get a conviction, and it sends a message to other people that would try to attack our community in this way, take advantage of our community in this way, that you have responsive leaders and responsive government ready to respond to their call and solve these issues. Thank you once again, and we here at Masjidullah will be here to support you in any way we can to continue to support our community. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? No questions? There being no questions, I think that concludes our conference. Thank you.